Want to welcome everyone. This is Tim Sarantonio from Neon One. I'm excited to present our next in our series, Partner Positives webinar series, which focuses in on the amazing Neon One consultant ecosystem. So in our next slide, kind of want to just give a little bit of context for who's putting this on, what we're going to be doing today, stuff like that. Kathryn.
Yes. Hello, Tim. This is Kathryn Gamble with Gail Perry Associates. Hello, everyone. And Gail Perry, Gail's here.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm in Chapel Hill, North Carolina today. And Kathryn, you're in Raleigh. Is that right?
Right. And Raleigh, North Carolina. Yes.
And we've been working on this new content for about a year. And it's going to be pretty advanced. I think you're going to really enjoy it. When we presented it at the North Carolina AFP conference this summer, we practically had standing room only, even at the end of the day when people are leaving. And just a couple of words about us. We're a fundraising consulting and training company and do capital campaigns and major gift programs and help organizations realize their vision around the world.
Awesome. So, Kathryn, if you can slide to the next slide.
Yes, happy to. Okay, now we're having a problem. Let's see. It's not advancing.
We had a little bit of technical issues, which is why we're starting a little late, everybody.
Yeah, apologize. It worked earlier. We did the advanced. Tim, have you got the controls or?
I do not. This is on your computer.
Let's try that.
All right.
There we go.
There we go.
Found it. Found a workaround.
Awesome. So I think you do need click one more time and we should see something else. There we go. Yes. The fancy spaceship. So we are Neon One. That's who's bringing today's webinar together. And I've been working on this with Kathryn. Kathryn's basically did all the work. I just put three slides in the beginning to make this look like space. But Neon One is a technology ecosystem providing a lot of different software and services, and kind of our vision is to be the global leader for organizations like yours when it comes to the things that are helping you take your mission to the next level. Now, how do we do that? On the next slide that Kathryn will click on over to. We're doing this in a few different ways. Now, the larger Neon One ecosystem serves over 30,000 nonprofits. We've raised over $10 billion through our history. In fact, $1.5 billion this year alone. And we do that through a lot of different technology, but our approach is a little bit different. We don't just have something and it just sits there. We like to have all our things talk and connect with each other. And so a lot of the things that we're going to be unpacking are going to center around what we have for NeonCRM, which is a donor management tool, major gifts management, campaigns, direct mail, all that good stuff. And we actually even consult with Fired Up Fundraising, Gail Perry, Kathryn, to say, you know what, like, how can we take this to the next level? And so that's how we're going to start to not only deepen our relationship, but create great content like this. So at the very tail end, I'm going to be coming in and basically listening to Kathryn and Gail's presentation and say, okay, cool. How does this apply to our ecosystem in a very practical way? A few other things that we do include client and case management. So if you need VOCA reporting, HIPAA compliance, things of that nature, we do it. Giving days, we power the largest giving days in the US. So North Texas Giving Day actually brought in $50 million in September. That's us. Rallybound is peer-to-peer fundraising, so walks, runs, endurance events, DIY fundraising, really sophisticated digital fundraising. That's something that we can do, and then that sinks into the CRM. And then I actually think I saw an arts organization that came in, so we actually have a very dedicated platform just for that, because it's a very unique need. So when it comes to box office management, ticketing, things of that nature, Arts People is a fantastic platform under the Neon One ecosystem. And we do websites, we curate integration. So I actually got off of a demonstration earlier with our friends over at Donor Search for a few of their clients. And so we integrate with wealth prospect services like Donor Search, but we curate it so you as a fundraiser, as a major gifts officer, as an executive director, board of directors member, you don't have to sit there and figure out how to make this thing work. It's just going to be ready for you. And we do that with consultation through wonderful folks like Gail Perry and Kathryn Gamble. So with that said, the next slide's just going to be a few very simple housekeeping items as we continue to welcome folks like Dawn Marie from Northfield Retirement Community in Minnesota. Welcome. This will be recorded. It's being recorded right now, and we're going to be putting this up on the Neon One YouTube channel for reference, as well as following up if you want more information. And just providing, if you need the slides or things like that, we'll be at the ready to be able to provide those things. But other than that, other than the fact that I'll be coming in at the very tail end and talking a little bit about how everything Kathryn and Gail are going to unpack applies to NeonCRM. Kathryn, Gail, it's your show.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. All right, great. There's the title of what we're going to say today, so I'm not going to spend any time on that slide. We're just going to move ahead with some definitions. And Gail, do you think there's any further introduction we need to do of ourselves?
Well, if y'all have any questions about our work, we have a weekly newsletter, the Fired Up Fundraising newsletter, that you can register for on the gailperry.com website. And we do work all over the country. And we love to create new content, and we feel like we're very much at the forward edge of the way major gift fundraising is developing today, and that also goes for capital campaign fundraising too. So I'm really eager to hear your feedback about our presentation, because we're staking ourselves out here on the title, right? That your major gifts metrics are all wrong, but it comes from our experience with capital campaign and major organization clients that are doing the wrong things.
Absolutely. And both Gail and I in our careers have actually been major gift officers. So I like to say that, because it's not like we just read a book and learned something about it and now trying to teach it to other people. We've actually been on the ground, just like you are every day. We have been doing major gifts our entire careers, from smaller organizations all the way to universities. So, and as Gail said today, some of the topics we're going to cover today are somewhat complex, but I will try to scale these. So if you're a small organization, stick with us. We'll talk about how you can adapt this. And if you're a larger organization, I think you'll see quickly how this can apply to you. So Gail, I think I'll move forward with some definitions here. This is just giving us some common groundwork here so that we all understand what we're talking about. So I'm going to just start with the definition of a major gift. And of course, usually the answer is it depends. But a major gift can mean a couple of different things from two perspectives. One is the organization's perspective. And from the organization's perspective, if it's a quite large organization raising a lot of money, a major gift may be as much as start at $100,000, or it could be $50,000, sometimes even a little more. Very small organization may consider $1,000 a major gift. Whatever you think is a major gift for your organization, that's where your tracking starts. So everyone can have a little bit different starting place. The other thing to consider is the donor's perspective of a major gift, and that also varies greatly. So for some donors, a major gift is $1 million. For other donors, a major gift is $1,000. So again, a little bit of perspective goes to that definition. Then a move, we hear this all the time, and that's obviously what we're talking about today, moves management. But what really is a move? And we'll get more into also what are we moving? Very important question to consider, which we'll bring up later. But a move is when a donor actually increases their understanding of your program, your organization, your mission, the impact that you're making in the world, and they're beginning to express desire or feeling motivation to help you further that impact in the world. So a move can be actually a series of things that go on to deepen that understanding. Contact, however, is usually a one-time thing, or it happens once. We might happen over and over again, but usually that's the contact that the major gift officer or the representative of the organization makes with the donor at any given point in time. A major gift portfolio is simply just the group or caseload of donors that's assigned to a person in the organization. Larger organizations who have sort of a stable of major gift officers, each officer has a portfolio. In a small organization, it may be the ED or the single development officer that handles a list of major gift prospects. And then lastly, outcome, because this is where we're going to go with measures on this. An outcome is basically something that has changed from point A to point B in time. And so what we're trying to talk about, we'll get into this, is measuring that change. Okay, so that's our little starting point. All right, so I want to go back in time just a little bit. There was a book years ago called Developing an Effective Major Gift Program that I picked up early in my career as a major gift officer. And these are the guidelines from the University of Pennsylvania. There was a former vice president there who wrote a chapter in this book. And he's talking about the assignments that a major gift officer should have. And this was the breakdown. So here in this case, they define major gift of $25,000 or more. And you can see that major gift officers were assigned a portfolio of 150 prospects and were directed to make 200 moves per year. Now, how moves are measured in this context is simply as a contact, not necessarily as a move. But anyway, that's what moves and contacts were used interchangeably, the words were. And then you can kind of see this prescriptive breakdown of what the portfolio should look like. But importantly, 1993 was when these standards were sort of put together, and these were the guidelines were considered gold standard in those days. All right, whoops, I think I went. So the question here, the big question is, so what? So, so what if there's a goal of 20 face-to-face visits a month, to really have a big portfolio? And I would consider 150 assigned to a portfolio, a rather large portfolio. And so what about these prescribed moves? This is kind of where we're getting to challenging the kind of standard guidelines that have been in place for so long. So basically, I wanted to point this out that since 1993, keep in mind those were those guidelines. That was quite some time ago.
Yeah, and I want to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead, Gail.
That a lot of organizations are still running their major gift programs according to the 1993 layout that we just looked at. The 150 prospects per portfolio is somewhat standard at a lot of places. And this breakdown between, I mean, it's a good breakdown, cultivation, early cultivation, solicitation, and stewardship. But there's a lot more sophisticated way to approach this that can be far more successful.
Right. And with the big outcome being dollars raised, we'll actually end up raising more money, not necessarily to follow the old guidelines. Great guidelines in their day, don't get us wrong, and certainly ones that I have used over my career. But things have changed, and so we have to kind of change with the times. And so this is just a little timeline, and you'll notice it's all focused in technology, but that's really been the thing that's really been driving a lot of the change in fundraising over the last 25 years or so. Again, you see 1993, again, when those guidelines were written, is when email begins to take off. And, Gail, you have that wonderful slide when we talk about fundraising that says, there was a day when getting an email was exciting because you didn't get very many of those.
This is true.
Or real quick, the thing I thought of is that technology companies still relied on direct mail, like AOL mailing you a floppy disk to get things started.
Right, right. We probably have people listening who are looking at each other going, what is a floppy disk?
What is a floppy disk? Yeah.
But you see, PayPal came along, and these were the early days of these things, and so online giving begins to make its way into the world. But bottom line is things have changed, and technology has really driven a lot how fundraising and how we go about fundraising has changed. And so we really need to make some adaptations, even in the major gift approach, which I talk about here. And one of the things is information management. So prospect research is more efficient. We partner with Donor Search, is another one of our partners. And when they have just increased their screening time turnaround to where I have uploaded screenings in the morning and had the data back in the afternoon. So this speaks to that kind of speed that technology is allowing us to have. Information is just so, we're inundated with it really. And in many ways it's less expensive to get it. And data Tim will talk about this talk about Neon, but data management has improved vastly. Gail and I had an article a week or a little over a week ago about bad data management can really hold back your organization. And the thing is, today is data management has so improved that it's really getting to the point where there's really no excuse for bad data management in our field.
And you can quote us on that.
Yes, please. And then not only is it helping us, but think about it from the donor's perspective too. It's a lot easier for them to get information. I'm going to date myself, but when you go back into the 90s, which is when I started my fundraising career, I started out with a consulting firm that used to produce a book. This is before the Foundation Center was online and all this, but used to produce a book of the North Carolina's foundations. And in order to do so, had to go to the Secretary of State's office and get physical copies of nonprofits 990s. Digital 990s are all over the place. Anybody can get your 990. Very easy to obtain them, and don't even have to leave your house to get them. But so we have websites, social media, and of course now they're charity watchdogs. All of this has come about, again, talking about information and how easy it is to obtain it. And it really has changed how we're doing things. So let's talk about the major gift portfolio from the 2020 perspective. We're almost to the 2 decades into the 21st century. It's time for things to change, wouldn't you say, Gail?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, all of this, just like all of our fundraising is data-driven, good portfolio management is also data-driven. Portfolios should be more fluid. I saw an article Gail shared with me earlier today from the Chronicle of Philanthropy, and they made a comment about hoarding prospects but it's so true, especially in the university context or larger organization context, that people will just hang on to their donors that they like, and so they can go see them and have contacts that they can put in their year-end review.
Because people are trying to game their
right. And we've all done it. I mean, I have to admit, we've all done it a little bit. Yeah. So, but it's not productive. I mean, time is money, literally. So portfolios are more fluid, meaning that donors come into them and donors leave them. They should not stay the same year after year. And portfolios are smaller. And this kind of speaks again to the availability of prospect research, availability of information. We can do a lot better job of really putting good prospects, solid prospects into portfolios, and not just loading up portfolios with anyone we think might be able to make a gift, like what we would call suspects. They should not be in portfolios. Only viable prospects should be there. So portfolios can be smaller, and major gift officers have more opportunity to really close gifts. It's very important.
And speaking of data, we've worked with some clients who couldn't get a printout of an individual gift officer's portfolio, which is and I want to make the point that a portfolio is one of your fundamental management structures for managing your major gift efforts and to be productive. So who's in the portfolio, what we're talking about in this slide, is just so critical, and how you choose people to pay attention to, where you're focusing your time and energy is one of the critical factors that you have to deal with every day.
Right, and we get that question frequently in our both from clients and in our coaching clients about, people aren't responding to me, I'm trying to reach people. Keep in mind that only maybe 1 in 3 to 1 in 4 donors or prospects want to, or even interested in having a personal relationship. So this speaks again to portfolios smaller. If a person is not responding, not interested, not responding after several attempts to reach them, there may be some consideration of moving them out of the portfolio or back burnering them to a later time and trying again.
I'm a real fan of the back burner because when I had 150 prospects in my portfolio, I really dealt with about 6 of them, and the rest of them were on my back burner that I used to fill in for trips, and I thought about when I wasn't occupied with my top 60. So that's a way to sort of break down and prioritize your prospect portfolio pool.
Absolutely. All right. So here's our key question number 2. All that said, with the way things have changed, the way we see portfolios, 2020 portfolios going, the big question here is, are we really measuring the right things? And our traditional measures, which have really been focused on the major gift officer's activity. So how many contacts does the major gift officer have? How many prospects are in the major gift officer's portfolio? How many gifts has a major gift officer closed? How many solicitations has the major gift officer conducted? Those are the traditional metrics for measuring the major gift officer. And we're not saying they're absolutely wrong, but what we're saying is we think there's a better way to think about managing the portfolio that's going to streamline things and achieve greater outcomes. And the other question that's, I think, important to consider here, since we're focused on the major gifts officers making a contact, but what we really want to have happen is for the donor to, quote unquote, move, or meaning, again, going from sort of interest or general understanding of the organization, or maybe annual support of the organization, but moving them to a greater desire, a greater level of understanding, so that they will make a major gift, a major commitment to the organization. That's moving. But if we're moving the donor, the question becomes, why are we measuring the major gift officer? The answer to that is to justify the existence of the major gift officer. But it's not really looking at what we're trying to have an outcome. So what we really want to begin to focus on is what happened to the prospect, what happened to the donor.
So this is really key, because so many moves management programs are tracking the activity of the development officer, not the activity of the donor. And so maybe you do want to track what your development officer does, but it's you really want to track, where is your donor on the continuum of vague interest and strong interest and commitment and ready to consider a gift. It's like we're not tracking the important measures of the donors, because that tells us where our pipeline is and tells us sort of what money might be on the table for our wonderful projects and organizations.
Right. And I think when we talk here about some of the metrics we propose, I hope that you will have some understanding of why we're talking about shifting a little bit from the measuring of the major gift officer's activity to more of what's happening within the portfolio. Helps us to ask the right questions to really focus in. So the question here is, where the donor's relationship, what are we really trying to measure when we measure a relationship? It's kind of squishy and not easy to think about how to measure it. But here's what we're going to talk about. So this is something when Gail and I did the talk at AFP, Association of Fundraising Professionals Philanthropy Conference back in August. Seems like yesterday. Anyway, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and Gail and I talk about this all the time. And you have your traditional, circle, and it's not wrong, but I kept thinking, we have that circle and we talk about it, we identify, we cultivate, we, solicit, we steward, and we go back around. But if you think about what the donor's doing in all of that activity, it's not as circular as we make it appear. And it may not even be, even these interlocking circles. It may be more circles than this. But what we're really trying to do in major gift process is move the donor from a transactional relationship, i.e. annual giving, which is a more transactional way of giving, to a more transformational way of giving, because major gifts have transformational impact on an organization. And what we're trying to manage in there is these sets of transitions that move them along this path towards that transformational giving. That's what moves are.
Yeah, I would also say that a transformational gift is emotion-based.
Mm-hmm.
Because being able to awake your donor's heart with emotion is one of the best ways to move through these transitions and go from just the annual fund transactional, or even gift clubs can be transactional. Or one of our clients is an arts organization, and their $20,000 a year major ticket holders are still transactional donors. And so, and they're not showing up to be really prime capital campaign donors like we had hoped, because they haven't moved through the transition to awaken their emotions to want to make a transformational gift, even though they do have the capacity.
Right, that's a great example. And so this is very important, moving to these transitions, and they're really a series of activities. Contacts are part of it. Can be, certain kinds of engagements. Board service can be there. There's a place for maybe some small event activity in here. It's all very personalized when you're moving from transactional giving, which is the direct mail, your multi-channel solicitations, that are all just focused on, and transactional is all focused on solicitation, whereas transformational is relational. And so, as Gail says, emotional too. So you're awakening the donor, the prospect, to all the possibilities that a very significant gift can make to mean to your organization and to the beneficiaries of your organization. It's a very different mindset. And one of the things we've also had, even I could think of this too, Gail, in our coaching program, sometimes it's hard for the development folks to actually get out of the mindset also of transactional giving and move to that transformational approach. It's a different pace. Also, transactional giving, fast, you just repeat it constantly. It's going on all the time. Transformational giving can take a lot of time. I've had large major gifts take as many as 5 years to come to fruition, and they very transformational in size, but it can take time. So it's a patience also involved here.
And I have heard a definition of moves management, or a move. I've heard a move defined as something that touches or penetrates your donor's consciousness, and especially their emotional heart. And so that's starting to measure the process of the donor in this whole journey than it is the activities of the development officer who's trying to make contacts and moves and check off boxes on a report so they can get their raise, which is no problem. I'm all for that. But let's make sure we're encouraging the right behaviors from our major gift officers and our fundraisers, so that they will create the funding that is there available for your work.
And that focus, that's great, because what we're trying to do also in that, to build on what Gail just said, is to focus the major gift officer, focus the development officer. A small organization may have just one person, focused on the donor and the donor's outcome, not focused on what it is you have to do at hand, your reports you have to fill in. All right, so these are the measures I'm going to talk about in measuring outcomes. And one of the things that's important to understand when you measure an outcome, that you usually measure it by using a rate or a ratio of some kind, because you're trying to measure change. We're going to start at one place and we want to know how we change when we get to the end point. And so this is going to our portfolio again. So we've got our group of donors, our case of donors. Some people refer to it as a caseload, but we'll call it a portfolio. And we're going to talk about these 5 measures. Now, the one at the bottom, total committed, is probably the easiest one. We all do that, but a gift commitment is an outcome in this regard, and so we do want to make sure we've captured that information. But I'm going to talk to you about each of these. So I'm going to go on to the next slide and talk about each one individually, so you can understand what we're meaning here. Okay, the first one is the portfolio opportunity ratio, and I just want to give a shout out to our friends at Donor Search, because something they do when they do the summary of screening results, they use an opportunity ratio in total. I think it's a wonderful thing that one could do also with their major gift portfolio. Now, I will say this, some people may not have access or don't have a capacity rating for their donors. And if you don't, it's okay if you don't use this. But if you do, this can be very interesting. So it's basically the ratio of the donor's largest gift to your organization at any time to their capacity rating. So it could be something like 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 or 1 to 2. And what it's telling us is it's what it's hinting at is sort of what opportunity do you really have with this donor, and what might it take for you to, for the donor to give closer to their capacity rating or their rated amount. It also begins to help you think about, how do I need to focus my conversations? How do we need to focus the experiences of that donor and the prospects in my portfolio, so that we move them to a larger gift, something maybe closer to their capacity rating. You may or may not hit the capacity rating. That's not actually the goal, but it's understanding more about what the opportunity is. It can also help you manage portfolios, because let's say you've got a major gift officer who's been around a long time. Their portfolio is quite mature. There have been lots of major gifts given out of their portfolio. They're kind of hanging on to all the people they've known for the 10 years they've worked at the institution or so, and they don't want to give them up, but there's not a lot of opportunity in the portfolio to really increase giving. So maybe those donors, and they might give again, but it's not going to be more than they've given in the past, for instance. So maybe it's time to put some new people in that portfolio and move the others off to somewhere else, and let's see if we can increase the amount of money we're raising every year that way. So it's a kind of something by which you can judge the opportunity that exists within a portfolio. The next is the portfolio conversion rate. And this is basically just a percentage of the portfolio that commits major gifts over a set time, usually within the year. So how many of the prospects that's assigned to a major gift officer, what percentage actually committed again? And again, based on sort of the maturity of the portfolio, or the where the donors are in terms of where their relationship with the organization, that percentage can be different for every portfolio. So it could be low on a portfolio that maybe has a high opportunity ratio, because it's going to take a little longer to get those donors moved along to that gift commitment, or it may be larger for a small portfolio with donors that are more ready to give. Basic line is, it really makes you think about what is the benchmark for this portfolio. It also helps you identify, and it helps major gift people not want sort of dead weight in the portfolio, if you will, because you want to raise that conversion rate to a higher number. So it helps kind of keep everyone honest a little bit, versus just looking at the amount of contacts the major gift officer has made. Then the solicitation yield rate, and this is not a new concept. I mean, I've actually used it in the past before, but I think it's something we should really look at all the time within our portfolios. And basically, it's just the ratio of ask amounts to commitment amounts. And what this can help you tell, and this is a great way if someone is managing major gift officers and looking at their results at the end of the year, and they're seeing ask and the yield rates are not high, or there's an ask and the yield rate is 0 because the donor didn't give, then it becomes questions. This is where you begin to have to ask why. Why did it happen this way? Did we not do the right things with that donor? Do we not offer the right experiences? Have we missed something? Are we not asking the right questions in our conversations with the donor? These kinds of measures actually challenge the development staff, the major gift officer, to really examine hard what is working and what is not working.
And I just want to say something about these metrics, because I've seen major gift officers that seem to be afraid of their metrics, and I might have been that way at one point in time when I was younger. And so I think it's really important to use whatever metrics you're using to manage your people or your own work, but make sure you're presenting it in a supportive context. That the goal is to coach and help your fundraiser to be the best they can be. And also, remember, I mentioned earlier, focus. Where are they going to focus their time and energy? It really helps them be razor sharp about, am I going to try to contact this donor or this donor? So these kinds of analyses, whether you're a math person or not, they will save your butt, because they are helping you narrow down your focus to the people who are most likely, maybe your more low-hanging fruit, the people who love you the most and who are most likely to give. We have a capital campaign client, and they want to go after their non-low-hanging fruit donors first. Right, Kathryn?
Right, we do. And that's just going to take forever. Not only that, but they're not going to yield a high solicitation rate because their donor's not ready.
Right.
And their donor's still thinking transactionally, which is fine. But the donor's not ready, not yet thinking transformationally. And I agree with Gail. I think, none of this is to be punitive. All of this type of metrics is to help major gift officers and the people that manage them focus in on what's working, what's not working, what do we need to change, how do we do it better, where are we really focused on the right donors, have we done our work the way we should do it. And also, because I think, putting down contact goals of 100, 200, that standard of kind of 200 contact, which still is out there even today, really just challenges the major gift officer to just go out and get contacts, especially as it's getting towards the end of the year in which they're being measured. Whereas if they're focused on getting up their solicitation yield rate, looking at their portfolios, and looking at the conversion rate, these kinds of things, these focus the kinds of contacts the major gift officer will make on getting the result, the desired result, which is getting the donor to commitment and raising money. And I think can do so where the major gift officer, and I think there should always be this qualitative side to this, because this is an art and science. Gail and I talk a lot about how fundraising is an art and a science. And these ratios and rates are science side, but you have to fill in the art. So when we talk about having conversations, if a donor says, no, I'm not giving, you thought they were ready, you solicit them. What are your post no conversations, so that you have a deeper, maybe you missed something in the conversation. Now you get an understanding, and now you know where the donor is. That's an important outcome to talk about. All right. So, and then I truly believe this, because the annual retention rate for the major gift portfolio is very important. And oftentimes we've got clients whose major gift officers are also soliciting for the annual leadership level gifts for their organization. But I don't really, and while organizations may do the retention rate for annual giving, they tend to do it for the entire donor pool. Nothing wrong with that. We need to know what that retention rate is. But let's break it down and look at it, the annual retention rate here, just for the major gift portfolio, because that may be telling us something if for some reason the donor doesn't renew their annual gift. Maybe it's not the time frame you're soliciting for their major gift, but what if something changes in their annual giving? And that may indicate that there needs to be a contact made by the major gift officer just to check in, see what's going on, whether they increase their gift, decrease their gift, or didn't make their gift at all, to find out. It's a great opportunity to have a conversation, a discovery kind of conversation with a donor, to kind of figure out where they are, what's going on with them, why did this change, that type of thing. So you definitely want to calculate the annual gift retention rate for the major gift portfolio. There we go. So I'm going to give you an example. I made up a portfolio here. I only made 10 donors. I could have just gone on, but I only put 10 donors in it. And so I have a capacity rating here. I put the largest gift they've ever made, their last year annual gift, if they made a gift this year, their major gift ask amount, and the total they committed. So this is the date I was going to use, and then I'll calculate the rates and talk a little bit about what this has told us.
And so, just let me interrupt.
Yes, please.
The capacity rating comes from your prospect research and your wealth screening, correct?
Yes, it could be. And some institutions take that information and create their own capacity rating. So yes, it could be the capacity rating you got from your research. It could be your capacity rating. Maybe your organization has a methodology you use. The key to it is be consistent with use the same source for comparing. That's very important when you do any of this kind of information, that you're always using the same source. You're always comparing apples and apples. So yes. And again, let me just say, Gail, many organizations, especially some of the smaller ones, may not have a capacity rating. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. This is not this. None of what we're trying to share today is intended to make anyone uncomfortable or feel like you are not can't do this. You can do this. You don't have to do that particular ratio. But it would be important, though, for you to look at their largest gift or pledge they've ever made, which could give you some hint at what they might do in the future. It's just another examination. Data, giving data tells us how is a hint toward the donor's behavior. It's sort of how they're voting for you. And it tells us a lot. And I don't know why, but we seem to overlook it sometimes. But it's very important to look historically at your donor's giving behavior. Okay. All right. So here's what I calculated using the information I just shared on that example. This portfolio had an opportunity ratio of about 1 to 9.
And explain what that is again, because I just think that's
right.
a fascinating number.
And again, I'll give credit to Donor Search for inspiring this concept and thinking about it, applying it to the portfolio itself.
And by the way, excuse me, I'm sorry. By the way, we're experts in working with Donor Search and using that data and identifying prospects if we can help you. Just like we're experts in the NeonCRM, we've chosen those 2 companies to partner with for reasons, and we've looked at all of them. So I want to give them both a thumbs up, particularly Donor
Absolutely.
Search, because this opportunity ratio to take a look at the largest gift your donor has ever made, or what they think, what the well screening thinks they're capable of versus what they're giving to you, and comparing the difference. That's enough to make me salivate. Oh my gosh, I've got all this potential. Hooray. Let's get to work.
Absolutely. And you probably want most of your portfolios, just again, I don't have a benchmark number for that. But you probably want there to be some healthy ratio in there, in your opportunity ratio. Again, if you've got a major gift officer working with the same people over and over and over again, maybe their ratio might be 1 to 1, meaning there's not much more opportunity for additional giving. Again, not discounting the giving that they're doing, but maybe they need to be managed slightly differently if it's kind of an ongoing relationship versus being able to, bring along new prospects or bring along prospects that could be doing more than they've been doing. So that opportunity ratio kind of hints at all of that. It's a guide, I think, if you will. In this particular example, the conversion rate was 50%. That's pretty good. I think, again, if you had a larger portfolio in here, you may have a smaller conversion rate, that kind of thing. But the conversion rate, again, it's indicating change. Did change happen? Did donors move in this portfolio? And the conversion rate is saying, yes, people were moving or being moved in this process. And it also, I really truly believe if we look at a conversion rate, we're beginning to think about really, really tying the contacts that the major gift officer is making truly with the outcome. Because you could go get 200 contacts in a year and not have, necessarily high outcomes in terms of dollars committed or even your conversion rate or anything, because you were just out getting your contacts. They may not necessarily be tied to the outcome.
It's really easy to do, just to make 200
easy to do,
quote unquote. And you game the system, which may be your goal, but the thing is, your ultimate goal is to bring money in for your mission.
Right, exactly. And again, it speaks to the, right. And again, to get higher conversion rates, the portfolio has to be fluid, meaning new prospects are coming into it and kind of prospects, some prospects are moving out of it. And that's important for creating new money coming into an organization. Very important. The yield rate here was very good. That's 77% is a pretty good yield rate. There was one gift in the example that was a no. And again, you look at the yield rate for the whole portfolio, but you also may look at your real yield rates for the individual ask. And again, if it's lower than, I would say, lower than 70% or so, maybe even 50%, definitely 50%, lower than 50%, you probably have not either you've overestimated the capacity of the donor, or you have not, or the cultivation process has not been, you really haven't gotten all the way there with the donor. So but it does indicate to you that there's some different or additional conversations you should be having with the donor. Because we have clients, sometimes Gail and I, they'll say, well, I'll be looking at their prospect list and I'll say, well, oh, look, that person gave $25,000 2 years ago. Why? Who were they? Why did they get? They didn't know. They don't know because they didn't make a phone call. There was no follow up to this. So anyway, a lot of this will help drive your conversations. The annual gift retention rate, and this was, I kind of made this statistic come out like this, but it was an 8% retention of donors, but it was only a 41% retention of the dollars. And that means you need to be looking at why. And your annual giving of your giving behavior, the regular giving behavior of your donors, even your major gift prospects, has the potential of being an indicator of how they may respond to a major gift request, or how they may respond to further cultivation. And you need to be paying attention to this. And if you see changes, particularly drastic change, they go from giving you a couple thousand a year to zero, or if they move up, let's say they double their annual giving or something, you need to be on that phone really quick and getting into why these changes are happening, and these kinds of things. These are points where the impact of what's happening here can spur you on to have good conversations and productive conversations with your donors. And then, of course, lastly, the dollars committed, which doesn't really need an explanation. Okay. So here's big question number 3, and of course, we're saying, does this mean we stop counting contacts? And the answer really is not necessarily, but maybe we don't have these aggressive contact goals. If we're using these metrics that we're proposing here to frame the portfolio and to help move the donors along, and also use them to motivate the major gift officer to make the best and optimal contacts. And also possibly the actual move may be a series of bundled contacts that we would then reframe as a donor experience. And we believe
love the idea of creating some sort of metric around a donor experience. Because I used to be the head fundraiser for the Keenan Flagler Business School in Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina. And I would have a donor in Atlanta or New York City be the host for a VIP gathering. And I would slather attention on this person. It was a gentleman, because the business school way back, they were mostly men, and his wife and his administrative staff. And it was an immersive experience for them to act as a host for other VIPs in their area. And it was a very deep cultivation move. And another donor experience could be a really good feasibility study interview for a capital campaign. I mean, we try to make our feasibility study interviews really powerful donor experiences for the donor to actually feel emotionally connected to the work of the organization. So think about the donor experience as a format that you might explore with your major gift team.
I think those are great examples, Gail. Those are great examples. And that's the other piece of it. When you're planning out your, historically, I think, and traditionally, planning out a cultivation plan, writing a cultivation plan, or I like to call them relationship strategies, because that gets it a little more donor-centered focused, as I'm talking about here. You can plan out, rather than planning out just contacts, which is what traditionally we have done, if we do what Gail was talking about and plan out experiences. Now we're really beginning to visualize or use a visual approach, and I'll talk about journey mapping in just a minute, a visual approach to understanding our donor's relationship with our organization and how best we can move that donor towards a major gift commitment. I mean, obviously, as major gift staff or development staff, our goal is to raise more money, but it's very, being very donor-centered in our approach, most especially on the major gift side, is really the way to do it. So we've got to be thinking constantly about the donor's experience, not our experiences.
Well said.
Whoops, I skipped one. Here we go. So here's my other little picture. Yes, as Gail said, we've been thinking about this for about a year now.
I've been working on this picture for 2 years, everybody.
I know. And I would love feedback. So please put comments in and feedback, because
you know what it's like when you come up with something really new and you don't really know how it's going to land, although it's landing very powerfully. So, and by the way, what do you think about these ideas? Because they're a little bit out of the box. And I wouldn't call them revolutionary, but I would say we're challenging the status quo. And we would love a comment in the question box. If you will just share your thoughts and give us some feedback, we'd really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And it really, everyone has experiences, and share with us your experiences in this regard. And it helps us learn, and we again, enjoy helping others learn too. So anyway, this picture, I was moved to move away from some of our traditional language, because some of it just sounds, I don't know, cultivating is like plowing a field, soliciting sounds, it's really more than that. Yeah. So qualification or qualifying is definitely a important piece of the major gift process. And if you are in an environment where you have your major gift staff and your prospect research staff, it is a team activity, very important there. If you're a small organization, you're just one person trying to manage all the development functions, your qualifying may be, really in the field only. You may be trying to qualify by having just some conversations, and there are very specific ways of doing that. But I like to call nurturing rather than cultivation, or even the word stewardship, because I always like to say, when we do use those words, that stewardship is just cultivation after the gift has been made. So basically, cultivation and stewardship have a lot of the same activities.
Absolutely. When the donor makes a gift, you go into post-gift cultivation for the next gift.
Exactly.
And it becomes a very happy cycle for everyone. And
so I call that nurturing, because that's really what we're doing. And if we think about nurturing, it has a kinder, gentler kind of, I don't know, I try to think about how the words we use make us feel, because we are trying to manage these relationships in a way that we help further someone else's philanthropy. So thinking about it like this, nurturing is kind of another way to think about it. And then thinking about asking or soliciting as inviting. It's a little more polite.
So we're Southern. You can tell with the reverse. We were raised to be good, have good manners, and so I think changing this vocabulary would be wonderful. Well, we're almost out of time. It looks.
Yes. So let me move ahead real quick, because I think we just got to cut one or two quickly. So again, just to talk quickly about the Major Gift Officer 2020, really what we're doing is trying to capture opportunity as we're managing our portfolio. So let's put our metrics around that opportunity and understand what that means. Objective is to move the donor, not the fundraiser. I've just talked about nurturing, and I want to say this about the focus. You want to focus on outcomes. Very important way to look at this. And then lastly, I just wanted to talk a little quickly about journey mapping. Journey mapping is kind of a newer term. It's only been around, I'm not sure how long. Not very long, has it, Gail? I think that terminology.
It's somewhat new, yeah.
Yeah, but as I said earlier, trying to take, journey mapping is similar to, it basically is another way of talking about a cultivation plan, or as I like to say, relationship strategy. And it's about this, you literally can put it on a piece of paper. And I think Tim can share a way that Neon actually can help you do this right in the database, which is great. But you can visualize all the donors' experiences with your organization, all your touch points, all these things, because they all go into developing that relationship and nurturing and moving that donor along. And it's very donor centered, very important.
So this is our
that's it.
This is our challenging moves management for the status quo, and I've got a few feedback comments here.
Great.
And really appreciate it. We can still call this moves management, Erin. We call it moves management, but we're going to add different metrics that also include the donor's experience, not just the activities of our wonderful, hardworking fundraisers.
Right. Tim?
Hello. That was awesome. I mean, that was everything I expected it and more. But it also, so I had connected with Kathryn earlier today, and one of the things that I told her is whenever I do these, because I think it's important to say, look, we have all this technology. How do we actually like leverage this good stuff? And when I listen, I sometimes come up with things on the fly, based off of the presentation being done live. And I have a few of those today. I want to keep it tight because I want to be respectful of what everyone is doing. And actually, somebody's asking of an example of journey mapping. I am going to show something that I think is a good example of how Neon naturally does that, but obviously something as a follow-up from Kathryn and Gail would be great too. I want to focus on a few key things in NeonCRM that today's presentation reminded me of. First is like the data. You got to organize things. Then and like the portfolio management itself. Then it's how do you even get to the metrics when it comes to if we're trying to re-envision a 2020 major gift officer's day-to-day life. What are they being basically compensated around? And then how do you get away from transactional to transformational? So I'm going to show 3 quick things to touch on all those. Again, this is a supplement to today's amazing presentation. So yeah, Neon, great retention rate. We're going to do it at a high level for you. You don't even need to worry about that. So when you need to start drilling down into the buckets of your list, you don't have to like figure out the baseline of what your overall retention rate is, because Neon does that stuff and more. Now, when it comes to the portfolio, some things that might actually help with this to visualize it is we have a prospect forecast tool that basically is like, okay, where are people in the overall buckets? Or you can configure it to maybe even be down to custom buckets that maybe you work with Gail Perry and Kathryn Gamble to come up with the overall bigger statuses that are very specific to your organization. If you
Tim,
want.
I love this. This is great. Nothing like a pipeline. We like a pipeline.
It's a good pipeline thing. And what I also like is that you can filter this by tag solicitors, which is like constituents, like a board member that may be assisting.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
So those are things you can make as many widgets of these as you want. And then down to the actual portfolio management itself is another thing where it's going to actually do it in a nice data model view, where it's going to say, okay, who am I working on? I got 115 things here. Who are my top 5 based off of who I got next? Filter by the ask amount, for instance. Okay, 100,000, that's my ask amount. Let's go for it, right? Wait a minute, no next activity. I think there's a problem here, right? So little things like that are going to help it, but you can also, again, configure this. Maybe it's not big enough for you, or you want to filter by a campaign or the solicitors. Like, okay, here I got Bill. He's the board president. I got to see all the people that Bill's helping me with because I got a meeting with Bill and we're going to go over this. Great. That type of thing, easy to do. And then as simple as if you even wanted to extend it, look, very nice.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the first part. There's other things that I think helps with this type of stuff, but the dashboarding itself is great because every single MGO can actually have their own custom dashboard. So everything that we see here can be specific to you without reinventing the wheel. This isn't us like saying, oh, you have to build your own queries or anything like that. For some of this basic stuff, it's just like, let me configure it so it like helps me. That's the whole point.
That's great.
The next one is I wanted to make sure we end on the metrics side. So what about the actual visualization and things of that nature? So let's talk about that. So let's look at Kevin Plank, who is actually the founder of Under Armour. So you have your basic information. This is what an account record looks like. You can actually flag somebody as a favorite. Look at that. Oh, that's fun. I didn't realize that we got that little thing. That's cool. That's new. So all the basic stuff that every system does is here, but you can also get an itemization of relationships that they may have. Oh, look, he has a fraternity brother with Sherlock Holmes, or maybe there's household stuff. No household, but if there is, it's going to show a lot of information there. But the journey mapping is this timeline feature. And so this is nice because you can filter on different categories. So maybe you actually only care about activities, donations, notes, and maybe some workflow, and actually how we even came to have this person come into our ecosystem of our nonprofit, right? Very, very quick filter. So this is even something nice where it's like, okay, I actually want to click on here and look up, oh, Under Armour, great, Kevin Plank information. Or maybe I want to go up here and search donor search. It's going to pull up a profile right here. And we're working on it with donor search and want feedback from folks like Kathryn and Gail to say, okay, when we bring the data back in, how can we actually assist major gift officers and other folks to really kind of easily see this and visualize this data in a good way. And I'm literally going to take this recording and send it to my developer team and business analysts and go, see these metrics, how can we get there, right? Because Kathryn, the reality is that a lot of the stuff that you talked about, like it's not going to be out of the box for pretty much any CRM on the market at this point.
No, right? No, it should definitely be something that people could almost literally push a button.
It should. So how do we get there? Yeah. And that's the vision and the beauty of Neon One's ecosystem, is that we want to listen. We want to take it seriously in terms of like what's going to drive change. And then we want to make it easy. We want to make it easy. So one of the things that actually I was like, hey, actually, this might not be too bad, is some of those solicitation percentages, for instance. So I'm going to do a simple report. So this is how you build something in Neon. And it made me think, okay, so maybe if I want to search on prospect asked amount, right, is greater than or equal to, and I'm just going to do $1,500. But then last donation amount is less than or equal to $1,000. Okay, we'll just do that. I'm going to do very simple stuff. But then maybe I want to output those two pieces. Now, I didn't save this report, folks, because one, I want to show you how easy it is to build, and two, I only thought of this during the presentation. And we are recording, so if you got to go, that's completely understandable. We are almost done, but a little past our time. Last donation amount, I'm just going to drag this over here. I'm going to do prospect ask amount, drag that next to it. And then you said capacity rating, right? So maybe my donor search rating, I grab that. There's probably not going to be much in here, by the way, in terms of the donor search capacity rating. I'm going to run this. So, okay, we got a 1-3 here. We got a 1-2 there. Last donation amount is 200. Whoa, what's up? We got a disconnect here with Barry Allen. And so that's the type of thing that if I even want to filter and search or export on these types of things, where my largest prospect amount is 100,000, you know, maybe I even output some of the last activities or things like that. I just pulled this on the fly, folks. I did not preload this. I didn't even realize I was going to build this type of report.
Wow.
Yeah, Kathryn, I only came up with this as I was watching you.
This is great. This is so great.
And then pop it out, Excel. And I didn't do, you could save this. You could save this. You don't have to come back to it. It will be dynamic. So let's say you actually go back and John Smith here or Kevin Plank, you actually get that last donation to be, you know, the above $1,500. He'll get removed from this report. You don't have to worry about them anymore. So you can use this type of thing to even pop it out, calculate those percentages, and then even also export some other custom information or things like that. So that's all I wanted to talk about on that today on the Neon side. We're not the star here. You folks are the star here. But if you are interested, have to say, go ahead, drop us a line. Otherwise, that's actually all I wanted to talk about today. So any final words or questions? I know we're a little over, but any questions that we have?
Well, we would really appreciate your email addresses if you want to be in touch with us or if you have questions. And we'd really, really appreciate your comments because we're going to be doing this webinar for AFP International, their webinar series in March, and we're going to keep improving it. So whatever you can help us make it much, much better.
Yeah.
But Tim, thank you for the examples, because what we find with our clients is that people's data is just, and their systems are just not working for them. It's going to shoot your fundraising in the knees if you don't pay attention to this, to your CRM, and just think how much money you can raise if you can pull reports like Tim just showed you.
It's amazing. It's great. I mean, again, first of all, Tim, thank you for this opportunity to be with you today and help this with all the people listening. And thanks everyone for joining. And we've gotten a little feedback, but like Gail said, you're welcome to email us directly. You can get our contact information on our website. We're right there. We'd be happy to answer questions offline too.
Awesome.
This is just a wonderful opportunity, and I think people can really see here, whether it's your major gift program or in other fundraising programs, it's a data-driven world, folks, and you've got to have the tools that make it easy for you. Time is something we can't produce more of. You've got to make it work for you.
Awesome. And I saw a question about a current Neon user and the donor search question. Chelsea, I'll have somebody in client success reach out to see what account level you're at. That is something that's included with some Neon systems. Others, it's just a very small upgrade. And we got some really exciting upgrades that I was even sharing with Kathryn and Gail that I think are going to really take things to the next level when it comes to automation of all these types of things. So let us know in the comments if you'd love some follow-up, some definitive follow-up, and otherwise, any last words, Gail, Kathryn? Got to leave it to you.
Thank you so much. Great to talk with everybody today. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, and I'll just add to that. Thank you. It's been a great pleasure to have the opportunity to do this. Yeah,
this was awesome. I will be immediately putting this recording up, and we'll be following up with that information with the recording. I'll make sure to hand that on over to Gail and Kathryn too. So I think they should post that around. That's going to be great for the audience that might be watching later. And I should have that by end of day ready on our YouTube channel.
Great. Tim, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day, folks.
Y'all, to you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.